As soon as my illegitimate daughter came home, she took a liking to my fiancé. She stripped herself naked and moved into her fiancé's arms, only to be angrily rebuked by him. "Shame on you, just like your mother." After being humiliated, the illegitimate daughter gave herself up and indulged herself. My fiancé turned a blind eye to this and focused on preparing for our wedding. On the eve of the wedding, the illegitimate daughter was found abused and died in the alley. My fiancé immediately turned pale and scolded me. "You can't stand her? It was her mom who did the wrong thing, not her." That's how my fiancé canceled the wedding, and he was madly suppressing me. When the company went bankrupt, he didn't get over it. He got street thugs to forcefully drag me to an alley to be abused to death. "I'll pay you back for everything you did to Bella." Opening my eyes again, his illegitimate daughter clamored to marry her fiancé. I smiled. "Since both of you can't live without a man, I'll fulfill you. In this life, all of them must die." The moment I saw an inchless Bella Thompson appear in front of Carter Jaxon, I realized that I was born again. Carter Jaxon froze in place. Bella Thompson was sitting on the bed in my new room with Carter Jaxon, her movements hot and bold. "Carter, I can't believe you don't feel anything for me," she said and looked provocatively at me standing in the doorway. She got up and walked slowly towards Carter Jaxon. Her exquisite figure was so beautiful that even I, as a woman, was touched by it. That's when Carter Jaxon's heart fluttered, wasn't it? Or maybe it was earlier. After all, Bella Thompson had inherited not only her mom's beauty, but also her mom's hot and sexy personality, so it wasn't surprising that he was impressed. My dad was so heartbroken back in the day too. As in my last life, because of the rainstorm, Carter Jaxon stayed at Thompson's house in our matrimonial home, while I still slept in my original bedroom to avoid suspicion. Bella Thompson had just approached Carter Jaxon when he pushed her away. Bella Thompson stumbled to the floor in a heap, a rare flash of embarrassment on her face. Carter Jaxon looked at her from above, his voice cold and hard. "Shame on you, just like your mom." In my previous life, I was touched to the core when I heard these words, thinking that Carter Jaxon understood me. What I hated most in my life was my dad and Bella Thompson's mother and daughter. And Carter Jaxon, he was on my side. And yet, it was this man who was always on my side that caused me to die in the end. I walked over and caught a flash of heartache in Carter Jaxon's eyes. That flash of heartache was just a flash. Carter Jaxon looked at me sideways, the bottom of his eyes still full of disgust, and said to me in a cold voice, "The new room is dirty, you can redecorate it if you want to or change it, whatever you want." I smiled slightly, "As you wish. It's not like I'm going to live in it anyway. I'm never going to make this my home again. Never again will I use the inheritance my mom left me, the shares in the company, to help Carter Jaxon soar. Because that's what I did in my last life. After my mom died, he was the best person in the world to me. I didn't want his giving to be a one-way street. But I couldn't figure out why someone who was so good to me would end up turning all the good he did for me into the tip of a sharp knife that stabbed me so hard because of Bella Thompson's death. He knew that my mom was forced to die by Bella Thompson's mom, and that it was Bella Thompson's mom who stole my dad. He knew that Bella Thompson wanted to steal him just as much as her mom did. But he didn't even listen to my explanation, so he blamed me for Bella Thompson's death, frantically suppressed my company and made me, like Bella Thompson, be abused to death. Thinking of all the things I did in my past life, my body couldn't help but tremble. Carter Jaxon, however, did not even notice my difference. His eyes were on me, but his mind had long drifted to Bella Thompson. It's funny that it took dying once for me to realize this. The good thing is, it's not too late. At that moment, a footstep came from the doorway. "Carter, Amanda, why aren't you guys down there?" It was my dad and my stepmom Taylor. My dad walked in before he saw Bella Thompson and was slightly stunned. "Bella? I couldn't find you all day today, and you didn't attend your brother-in-law and sister's engagement ceremony, you?" It was only then that he realized something was wrong and his voice sank. "What kind of dress are you wearing?" Bella Thompson hooked her red lips. Her left hand gently covered her chest. The blanket that surrounded her body was going to fall off with a different flavor. Carter Jaxon was staring at him. He had a complicated look in his eyes, both wanting to see just how crazy Bella Thompson could be, but also fearing that his relationship with me would be affected because of this. Bella Thompson also kept looking at Carter Jaxon, smiling alluringly and provocatively. "Dad, Mom, I like Carter, I want to marry Carter." Carter Jaxon's eyes burned with fire. The two of them just looked at each other, one defending and one attacking, which can be said to be full of sexual tension. Finally, it was Taylor who broke the silence. "Bella, don't be ridiculous. Carter is your brother-in-law." "So what? Bella Thompson was arrogant and provocative. What error is this? If you like something, you have to fight for it. I just like Carter. Taylor saw that Carter Johnson didn't say anything, and her guts got bigger. She smiled and said, "That's true, nothing is guaranteed these days. A marriage license is nothing, not to mention that Amanda and Carter aren't married yet. Legally they are both single men and women." In this world, juniors have their own set of laws. Of the three parties involved, neither Carter Johnson nor I spoke up. My dad seemed to have deliberated carefully before he suddenly snapped. "Bella Thompson, how could I have given birth to such a shameless daughter like you? Carter is your brother-in-law. The two of them are going to get married soon, and you're interfering now. Do you know what kind of nature this is?" Bella Thompson didn't care what kind of nature it was. She looked at Carter Johnson, her red lips slightly opened, and her tone was firm. "I love him." She really loves him. I couldn't help but applaud. The applause was like a switch for Carter Johnson. He turned around sharply to look at me. His expression became a little urgent. "Moon." I looked at Bella Thompson and smiled slightly. "Fine, since both you mother and daughter can't live without your man, I'll make you whole." Carter Johnson clutched my wrist. "Amanda, what did you say?" Bella Thompson didn't expect me to say that, and shocked and delighted, took a few steps forward. "Carter, don't you get it?" Shut up." Carter Johnson interrupted Bella Thompson with a low growl and stared at me dead in the face. "Amanda, we just got engaged today, and you know that I love you." I gently patted Carter Johnson's hand that was holding my wrist. "Carter, take it easy. Everyone has the right to love and be loved, don't they? Besides, my sister just came home, and I don't want to be accused of jealousy, so since she likes you, why don't you two try it out together?" Carter Johnson's complexion changed rapidly, the shock and subtle hesitation visible to the naked eye were all seen by me. When I finished, I slowly added, "Of course, I believe in you too, and if you can hold yourself together, we'll get engaged then." After I finished my sentence, Bella Thompson's expression became fleshed out and agitated. "Amanda Thompson, are you telling the truth? You're not lying to me, are you? How could I not give her that chance?" I hooked my lips and continued, "Well, Carter, I'm very tired today, so I'll go to my room to rest first. You have a good rest too." After saying that, ignoring Carter Johnson's retention, I went upstairs. The moment I turned around, my complexion turned cold. The air here was making me sick. After I was reborn, every second I was near Carter Johnson was incredibly hard for me. If I could, I would like to directly plunge a knife into his heart. But that would be too cheap and dirty for me. For him? Meh, it wasn't worth it. I took a deep breath. The good part of tonight was just beginning. After everyone had gone to bed, Bella Thompson did sneak into Carter Johnson's room. Carter Johnson saw Bella Thompson in our marital room, and instead of pushing her away like he did earlier, he coldly reminded her, "This is mine and Amanda's marital room." Bella Thompson's voice was teasing. "It's more exciting that way, isn't it?" After a long time, Carter Johnson cursed lowly, "Leprechaun." Soon the sounds of childish noises were emanating from my new room with Carter Johnson. I heard this from outside the door, looked at the cell phone I was recording on, and laughed out loud silently. When hypocrites tear off their masks and reveal themselves, they really are disgusting. Garbage. After a good night's rest, I started thinking about my revenge plan early the next morning. Instead of being alone, I'd find a reliable partner. Soon enough, Dylan Johnson's name came to mind. Dylan Johnson is Carter Johnson's half-brother. Speaking of which, Carter Johnson, like Bella Thompson, is an illegitimate child, and they were both born to mistresses. And this Dylan Johnson is the rightful Johnson family. Only Carter Johnson's mom was too tactful and forced Dylan Johnson away from both mother and son. I guess Dylan Johnson wanted to see Carter Johnson end up worse than I did. Only I didn't wait for me to call Dylan Johnson, but he asked me to meet him first. In his previous life, Dylan Johnson had also asked me to meet him. Only at that time, considering the relationship between him and Carter Johnson, I just politely declined. After all, if you really count the Johnson family and Thompson family's marriage, the object of my marriage should be Dylan Johnson. My marriage would have been to Dylan Johnson, never Carter Johnson. In the private clubhouse, I looked at the man in front of me, so good that I was shocked at how aggressive the face looked. I smiled lightly and asked, "Mr. Johnson, you wanted to see me. What is it?" Dylan Johnson's brimming black eyes watched me silently for a moment and let out a soft laugh. "I heard about Carter Johnson and Bella Thompson." After a moment of shock, I laughed out loud. "What's going on with them? How come I don't know?" Dylan Johnson's eyes never left my face for a moment. "How many times do you think a man can stand up to a woman? Or a beautiful woman?" I have to say, Dylan Johnson hit the nail on the head when he asked me to meet him. It's just a shame that I was so preoccupied with Carter Johnson that I didn't pay any attention to what was going on out there. Carter Johnson and Bella Thompson must have hooked up a long time ago. I pursed my lips and didn't make a sound when I heard Dylan Johnson whisper in my ear word for word. Amanda, it's actually me you should be coupling up with, not that bastard Carter Johnson. Dylan Johnson's words made my heart skip half a beat. After 6 o'clock, I returned to my apartment near the office. It was already dark. Curled up on the couch by the floor-to-ceiling windows, I watched the long line of headlights on the viaduct in the distance, and Dylan Johnson's words kept echoing in my ears. I don't know how long it took, but my cell phone vibrated. Surprisingly, it was a text message from Dylan Johnson with an accompanying photo. It was a picture of Carter Johnson and Bella Thompson together. He had indeed gone to Bella Thompson. I wasn't surprised. Dylan Johnson. I mumbled the man's name. The doorbell rang. Heh. I laughed softly and got up to open the door. Outside the door, Dylan Johnson's tall and magnificent figure appeared in my eyes. He was wearing a black coat, and his handsome face was as seductive as a demon. I held the doorknob in one hand and blocked the doorway, raising an eyebrow. It's so late you came to see me, what's the matter? This for you. He pulled out a ring and handed it to me. It was my engagement ring to Carter Johnson. I dropped it on purpose today at that private club. I let go of the doorknob and reached out to take it. Thank you. Dylan Johnson is still standing in the doorway, not moving. I looked up at him. Sparks bloomed as they met each other's eyes. My red lips parted in a teasing manner. Won't you come in and sit down? My words seemed to spur Dylan Johnson on, and he cupped my cheek and kissed me heavily with thunderous force. The engagement ring had fallen somewhere and I didn't care anymore. What is this to you? I pushed him away, my voice lazy. Seducing your own sibling? Dylan Johnson suddenly lowers his head and bites me on the shoulder. I hear Dylan Johnson say, I'm not like him. Amanda Thompson, you would have been my wife and I've liked you for a long time. The words fell from Dylan Johnson's lips and my heart went completely out of rhythm. That night, Dylan Johnson stayed over, saying it was pouring outside. I couldn't get rid of it. Early in the morning, men with only a bath towel around their waist and their pecs and abs and mermaid lines are all in my eyes. Suddenly I resonated with Carter Johnson. I think he felt the same way when he saw Bella Thompson with only a blanket around her body. He said Bella Thompson was a leprechaun. I said, Dylan Johnson is a leprechaun. The next second he was wrapped into his waist and the hot kisses fell immediately afterward. Breakfast on the table was cold. An hour or so later, Dylan Johnson was busy in my kitchen while I read what he had just given me, information about Bella Thompson's previous life. In my previous life, the reason why I didn't investigate Bella Thompson was because I promised my mom to live a good life and take care of Johnson herself. As much as I hated the mother and daughter, I hated my dad even more. Before I died, I realized that my mom's death had something to do with Taylor. After I was reborn, I immediately got a private detective to investigate that mother and daughter. Dylan Johnson found me at this time and gave me Bella Thompson's information first. Oh, she also has an ex-boyfriend. This ex-boyfriend can be described as a ticking time bomb, and he's not the kind of person who can just say break up and cut it off. I curled my lips. This information adds to my revenge plan. I have to be grateful to Dylan Johnson. So during dinner, I also gave him a little favor. I have no way to follow the two projects of City West Real Estate and East Side CBD Business Circle, but I can't fall into Carter Johnson's hands, so I'll kill two birds with one stone, depending on whether you can take it or not. Dylan Johnson laughed softly. So I found a military advisor, ah. I hooked my lips. It's a partner. In the evening, my dad asked me to come home for dinner. Because of my relationship with the Johnson family and the shares of the company in my hand, even if he no longer likes me as his daughter, he still has to do the face work. I even called Carter Johnson to ask if he was coming over for dinner tonight, and I wasn't surprised when he said he had something to do and wasn't going. Now he touches Bella Thompson. That is a dry fire, naturally afraid that I see a little spark. The private investigator I'd gotten sent me pictures, and Carter Johnson had bought a condo on the west side of town, and the two of them were there, halfway across town, but it was worth it to them for that shit. And with Carter Johnson's mind completely off the company right now, it was convenient for me to move around, and equally convenient for Dylan Johnson. When I arrived home, the maid greeted me with a smile and took my coat. Missy is back. Bella Thompson was the only one in the living room, and she seemed to be waiting for me. I didn't look at her and went upstairs. Amanda Thompson. Bella Thompson's voice rang out. I stood on the third step and slowly looked sideways at her below. You said you'd make me whole and that stuck with me. I let out a soft laugh with my eyes downcast. You're asking me to let you have my fiancé? Bella Thompson was non-committal. I really thought you had it in you to steal Carter Johnson, but I didn't realize it was directly from me. Bella Thompson, where's your talent? She smiled smugly. How do you know I must not have succeeded by now? I asked, is it only Carter Johnson's people that you want? Will they want you? The smile on Bella Thompson's face is fading little by little. Getting a man's body isn't much of a skill. They say that a wife is better than a concubine and a concubine is better than stealing. Even if you do get Carter Johnson now, it's only because, well, he found it exciting that you were stolen from him. I laughed from the bottom of my heart. Do you want me to call Carter Johnson right now and ask him to make a choice between the two of us? Bella Thompson, who do you think he would choose? Bella Thompson clenches her hands, her eyes overflowing with resentment. That's it? I smiled contemptuously. Don't worry, I won't be so bored as to ask Carter Johnson to choose between you and me. Who the hell is Carter Johnson? Is he qualified? I'm not in the mood to compete with you. Instead of talking big with me, why don't you just focus on Carter Johnson? Maybe he'll actually choose you. I ripped off Bella Thompson's New Age Woman cover right in front of her and showed her how cheap she was. The look on her face, on the verge of tears but holding on for dear life, was really nice to see. I was in a good mood, smiled at her and went upstairs with a relaxed and happy pace. Back in my room, I took out my cell phone and dialed a number. Private investigators tell me that Bella Thompson is being stalked by her ex-boyfriend Jake Martinez. He's a punk and Bella Thompson hung out with him when she was in middle school. She gave Jake Martinez all her firsts, her first kiss, her first fuck, her first beating. That's right, Jake Martinez was the one who beat her up. These two have been swooning for so many years and are truly in love. Finally, before Bella Thompson was to be picked up by my dad, she broke up with him and walked away. Jake Martinez has been looking for her. I had someone anonymously tell Jake Martinez where Bella Thompson was. So now Bella Thompson has her hands full dealing with Jake Martinez and seducing Carter Johnson at the same time. Oh. Carter Johnson grew up in the Johnson household and received an elite education, always following the rules. Bella Thompson was the one who broke his routine, and that's why Bella Thompson appealed to him so much. He was addicted and completely unable to take his mind off of anything else for a while. He also knew that he was spending less and less time with me and felt sorry for me, so he gave me all kinds of expensive gifts every time we met. I accepted them all and did not let him touch me a bit. Soon after, I received a video from a private investigator. In the video, Jake Martinez slapped Bella Thompson's face so hard and with such force that Bella Thompson was knocked straight to the ground. He bent over and cupped Bella Thompson's chin. Remember, you're my woman, and you're only going to be my woman for the rest of your life. He shrugged off her face. If you dare to betray me, tomorrow I will find him 10 or 8 men to serve you properly, so that you can have a good time at once. I was shocked. In her previous life, Bella Thompson was abused to death by several men in an alley. Could Jake Martinez have gotten someone to do it? Bella Thompson's wretched cries rang out. I'll give you money, I'll give you as much money as you want, just let me go, I beg you. With trembling hands she pulled out her cell phone. I'll transfer the money to you. Jake Martinez snorted. Remember, you have something on me. If you dare to call the police, I'll make you lose your reputation. He looked Bella Thompson up and down again. I kind of miss you, find a place. Bella Thompson gets up from the floor holding onto the wall and walks away with Jake Martinez. The next video is of the two entering Carter Johnson's condo he bought on the west side of town. Wow. How would Carter Johnson react if he knew that Bella Thompson brought another man into their love nest? I kinda can't wait. 2 months later, after learning that Carter Johnson and Bella Thompson had a hospital gynecology appointment, I put on light makeup and purposely created a chance encounter. The three of us just locked eyes without warning. Carter Johnson looked flustered, and as soon as he let go of Bella, Thompson came striding towards me. Bella Thompson watched the scene and showed a touch of bitterness as well. Carter Johnson grabbed my hand and eagerly explained, "It's not like that, Amanda. I am just playing along with her. I love you always." I pulled out my hand, tears overflowing from the bottom of my eyes, and my tearful eyes swept Bella Thompson. She felt like a clown too, didn't she? I turn around and walk away. Amanda. Carter Johnson caught up with me. Amanda, you forgive me, please. I'll never see her again. I looked at him sadly. Why did she go to the gynecologist? Did you two have sex? Carter Johnson was completely flustered. I was wrong, Amanda. You forgive me this time. I let out a bitter laugh. Who am I to forgive you? Although the two of us are an unmarried couple, there's nothing substantial in the end, and where your heart is, it's not something I can sway. In you, my heart has always been in you. Carter Jaxon gripped my hand again. It was Bella Thompson who seduced me. You saw how she seduced me, Amanda, that kind of cheap woman. I was just playing around. I definitely didn't take it seriously. He raised his hand and swore, the one I love most in my life is Amanda Thompson, and the one I want to marry is also Amanda Thompson. If I violate this oath, the sky will strike me with thunder. Stop it. I pulled out my hand and wiped my tears. I believe you, just get rid of her. And be careful, don't catch any diseases. I warned. Carter Jaxon was slightly relieved. I'll never have sex with another woman again. Carter Jaxon was about to say something else, but was interrupted by the ringing of his cell phone. He picked up the phone and his face turned ugly. What's going on? I'll be right back. He hung up and said anxiously, Amanda, something's happened to the company. I have to go back right now. I pretended to be concerned. What happened? Carter Jaxon pursed his lips. Changming, that project happened. All my funds are invested there, ready to go big. I did not expect me to go back to the company first. He left in big strides. This time it is really something happened. Even if he receives an elite education, Carter Jaxon is not born to be a business material. In his previous life, if I hadn't helped him, he would have been able to sit in the position of president of Johnson's Group. In this life, without me helping him to keep an eye on his own projects, all of them are pits. The projects that really make money are already in Dylan Johnson's hands. If I wasn't so focused on revenge right now that I didn't want to be distracted by anything else, I would have done those 2 projects myself. I retracted my eyes from Carter Jaxon's flustered back and looked at Bella Thompson, who was not far away. She should have heard everything Carter Jaxon said just now. Feeling pathetic? If I were Bella Thompson, I would grasp all the benefits that come with the identity of the Thompson family's daughter, and use my own strength to move up the ladder. Not on the backs of men. So yeah, Bella Thompson is really stupid. I shrugged and left. The company's mess has Carter Jaxon so busy he doesn't have time for Bella Thompson. Instead, Jake Martinez got a taste for it again and waited for her every day in Carter Jaxon's apartment. It didn't matter whose it was, the two of them shared it. One thing led to another and Bella Thompson got pregnant. But she didn't seem sure whose baby it was, so she was going to go to the hospital to abort it. But I wouldn't allow it. So I anonymously let Carter Jaxon know the news. Carter Jaxon chased Bella Thompson from the office to the hospital and stopped her from going into surgery. The baby was kept, but the Johnson's Group mess was still unresolved. So Carter Jaxon thought of me. He came with his dad to talk to my dad about our wedding date. I'm going to officially announce Amanda and Carter's wedding date at our company's anniversary. Carter Jaxon's father, Eric Jaxon, said. Naturally, my dad was aware of the recent events in Johnson's Group, but there was no way he was going to just give up on such a great in-laws. After all, a thin camel is bigger than a horse. Besides, Johnson's is only experiencing financial difficulties for once. My dad nodded. Good thing too. All 3 of them look at me. They were trying to use my marriage to Carter Jaxon to divert attention and soak up a wave of traffic. I smiled and agreed, sure. Carter Jaxon shook my hand and seemed relieved. He was confident that he would get through this, not realizing that the company was just the beginning. Johnson's Group's anniversary celebration was held as scheduled. As pre-planned, Eric Jaxon was going to announce my marriage to Carter Jaxon. Uncle Jaxon, I have an announcement to make. I walked up. Eric Jaxon looked at me red-faced. Come. I walked up to the front of the line and my eyes swept over everyone and finally landed on Carter Jaxon. I smiled gently at him and spoke slowly. I declare my engagement to Carter Jaxon broken. These words were like a deep water bomb, and after a moment of eerie silence, a chorus of murmurs rang out. Carter Jaxon strides over and grabs my wrist. Amanda, what are you doing? Don't you know? I looked at him coldly. Carter Jaxon opened his mouth to say something, but his eyes caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. In the next second, his shocked eyes smashed over. Bella Thompson is here. I curled my lips and waited for the show. Bella Thompson walks up to Carter Jaxon in front of the crowd, looks at him, and then walks up to Eric Jaxon. Uncle Jaxon, I'm pregnant with Carter Jaxon's baby. There was even more uproar and chaos ensued. The sound of my dad cursing, the sound of Eric Jaxon cursing, and the sound of Carter Jaxon yelling. Who sent you? Bella Thompson lifted her chin and smiled with confidence. Carter Jaxon, I told you I was going to get you, and I was never going to let you marry her. You. Carter Johnson gritted his teeth and suddenly turned to me. Amanda, listen to me. I pushed him away, finally not having to hide my disgust for him anymore. I took a step back. By the way, I've got a big present for you too. Images appeared on the screens in the ballroom. Immediately afterward, Carter Johnson's voice takes the lead. Goblin. Then came Bella Thompson's voice, the audio I had recorded that day. Turn it off. Turn it off. Carter Johnson yelled. Bella Thompson's indignant eyes glared at me. You knew all along? I raised an eyebrow. Don't worry, the best is yet to come. The screen changes again as Carter Johnson looks for the switch. On the screen, Bella Thompson and Jake Martinez were cuddling and kissing as they walked into his apartment together. None of the clothes were the same, and it was evident that there had been more than one occasion. This time it was Bella Thompson's turn to panic. She rushed over to him like a madwoman. Turn it off. Hurry up and turn it off. Carter Johnson strides over and slaps Bella Thompson across the face. Shit, you bitch. The two fought and Bella Thompson was knocked to the ground by Carter Johnson, dark red blood oozing out from underneath her. Ah. Murder. The scene was chaotic as hell. I stood in the crowd and watched the scene and laughed from the bottom of my heart. Bella Thompson's baby is gone. The video from the Johnsons' anniversary celebration went viral and hit the hot seat, and the Thompson Johnsons are on fire for good. Stock prices plummeted. Eric Johnson was disappointed in Carter Johnson to the core. That's when Dylan Johnson came along. Eric Johnson was an absolute businessman and naturally knew who to choose as his successor. My dad was the same. With the experience of my last life, it was easy for me to take down the company. I even put out all those peachy news about him and took the opportunity to collect a lot of loose shares. But I still want to give my dad a glimmer of hope. Kick that mother and daughter out and I'll help you through this. Although my dad hated me for making a big deal out of the Johnsons' anniversary celebration, he could only count on me, so he kicked Taylor and Bella Thompson out in front of me. Taylor cried and screamed and was a mess. She'd had a good life for years and deserved her comeuppance. Sure enough, Taylor got into a drunken driving accident and was killed instantly. That's how fast retribution comes. Bella Thompson came to me before she was even done with her baby shower and confronted my dad. You killed my mom, didn't you? It was you. She was pale, no makeup on, her hair stuck to her face from tears, and she looked like a madwoman at the moment. My dad walked over to me. You killed someone? I snorted. If you think I killed someone, you can call the police. It's you. I looked at my dad coldly. Don't tell me you don't know how my mom died, Oliver Thompson. Do you think I didn't kill you because I couldn't do anything about you? I didn't want to dirty my hands for someone like you. It's not worth it to pay for your life. But from now on there will only be blood relationship between us. As for feelings. I smiled coldly. You don't deserve it. People like you don't deserve anyone's love. My mom loved you so much. What did you do to her? I used to love you so much. What did you do to me? Does Taylor love you? Does Bella Thompson love you? Ask her. My dad was trembling, staring at me and looking at Bella Thompson, who was acting like a madman, and suddenly collapsed on the floor. The maid immediately called for an ambulance to come and pull him away. Bella Thompson was also kicked out by me. News came from the hospital that my dad had a stroke and was paralyzed, and would be confined to bed for the rest of his life. And Bella Thompson, she was once again haunted by Jake Martinez. Only unlike her last life, in this life, she was the one who killed Jake Martinez. By the time the police found her, she was insane and giggling all the time. In the end, Bella Thompson was institutionalized. Carter Johnson has been kicked out of the Johnson house too. Dylan Johnson was not going to give him a chance to roll over. In desperation, he found me. Amanda, help me, I promise you. From now on I'll be devoted to you, Amanda. I really love you. Before I was just a momentary obsession. Your love, it doesn't seem to be worth much. Dylan Johnson's contemptuous voice rang out. He opens the door and walks slowly over to me, lifting his hand to gather me into his arms. She's my woman now. Carter Johnson's eyes widened in disbelief. No way. He shook his head desperately. It's not true, Amanda, you love me. I smiled slightly and tilted my head back to kiss Dylan Johnson on the lips. Carter Johnson, I don't love you. Almost instantly, a raging hatred welled up in the bottom of Carter Johnson's eyes. Behind that hatred was gut-wrenching murderous intent. I could see it, and so could Dylan Johnson. He hugged me tight. Don't be afraid, I'll protect you. I nodded. Carter Johnson was quiet for a few days. On this day, Dylan Johnson and I had just come out of the office after a talk when a sedan came speeding towards us both. Watch out. Dylan Johnson yelled, tackling me to the ground and rolling a few times to avoid the car. And the car crashed into a side flower bed as if it had lost control. Carter Johnson was badly injured and was hospitalized. He woke up 3 days later, and as soon as he did, he went crazy and wanted to see me. I went. In the hospital room, he took off his hangnail and jumped in front of me, kneeling at my feet. Amanda, I'm sorry. He looked up, already in tears. I remember what I did to you in my last life. I'm sorry. Forgive me, Amanda. I looked down coldly at him and laughed out loud. Do you know why I didn't take your life? Carter Johnson looked stunned. What? The smile on my lips deepened. He seemed startled, his pupils dilated, and he stumbled backwards. I stared at his face, my voice softly said, I've changed my mind. I don't want you to die. I want you to live and suffer my revenge on you. The more I thought about it, the happier I became, and with a smile I exited the hospital room. A week later, in a villa on the outskirts of town, Carter Johnson, who had just been discharged from the hospital, was brought here. Inside the house, a dozen strong men were waiting for him. I'm going to pay back what I've suffered 1,000 times over. Inside the villa, Carter Johnson's heartbreaking voice came from time to time. I heard enough before I drove away. It was 3 months later when I saw Carter Johnson again. I'd just left the office and he came up to me out of the blue. Amanda, I've been punished. Come back to me. Let me make it up to you. What I love is always you. After you died in my last life, I was so miserable. Before the words left his mouth, a foul odor suddenly came. Carter Johnson stood still, his face ashen. The people around him smelled it and looked towards him, talking. He ran away like a madman. People on the road were looking at him, and there were also video recorders. The video was uploaded to the internet, and the netizens had their own opinions. How did Carter Johnson turn into this kind of asshole now? It's been played out, haha. I'd be ashamed to live if I were him, and the video of his incontinence has gone viral on the internet. Carter Johnson had disgraced the Johnson family, who would never recognize his existence again. One day, half a month later, Carter Johnson's body was found floating in the river. His body was soaked and swollen. Carter Johnson froze in place. I also got everything in the Thompson house. The two of us, it was a successful partnership. Spring is in full bloom. I finally free time to rest, a person to the beach, strolling in the sea breeze, enjoying the moment of coziness. I don't know how long I've been walking, but when I look up again, a tall figure catches my eye. Dylan Johnson walks up to me holding my favorite peony flower. His smile is as gentle as the wind today, and he extends his hand toward me. Hello, Amanda Thompson, I'm Dylan Johnson and I'd like to apply to be your intern fiancé. I wonder if I'd have the honor. That's a real set of words. I hooked my lips and laughed softly, reaching out to shake the man's big, warm hand. Good, fiancé, happy internship.